we have a few things to pick from. We can have things like arrays. You can put an array in there, and you notice that those can actually be really any type. It can be an array of whatever type you want that to be. I do believe you can even put maps under there and nest things further. Okay. But as I said, we usually prefer using maps over arrays. You've got booleans. You have individual bytes that you can put in. There are date format types, date and time format types. If you want to deal with numbers, they're put in as floating point numbers. They also have geographic information, so you can use geographical point if you need like a latitude and longitude. If you need to do, there's integers in there as well. Notice that both integers, so there's integers and there's floating point numbers. There's maps we can add, which map is kind of like a nested object, right? Is one way to think about it. It's got keys and values. So if you need to nest documents inside, you can do that. An example of that of what a map might look like includes things like if you were looking at the eBay API, remember within the item summaries, there were nested things. So for instance, they had a seller object and a price object and an image object. Those things would be considered maps in this world. So you'd say like, hey, the image has the image URL property that's got a string, or with the price, it was currency and value, and those two things were strings, similar kind of thing. So that's basically representing a nested object. You can also have nulls, so any field can have a null value, or you can have references. References point to other documents. So reference, you can see they kind of mentioned, is a path, or finally you can have a string of text. And notice that this text string, they're actually allowing it to be fairly large, up to close to a megabyte in size, at least until you run into that document limit where things can only be 1 megabyte in size. So that's kind of what we want to see from that side, is just to mention some of the data types that we can use. There's also some videos in here that they kind of talk about how to choose yours. So there's another article that I linked called Choose Your Data Structure. That links to videos 4 and 5 of the series, where they talk about arrays and maps and choosing how to structure your database. So if you're running into more questions of like, should I use a subcollection or an array or a map in this case, this is a really good place to look to make those decisions. Okay, I would recommend, starting off to try to keep it shallow, to try to just have collections with simple data types, but you will find over time that you'll need to add nested objects and such. Okay, so you can find some more information there about how to structure the data. So everybody kind of feeling so good so far as creating the database, kind of modeling that?
Is this the only way to add information to the database?
So you can do it through the console. You can also do it programmatically. Okay. So from the actual app, from Android, from Java, we can add data. But this is the entry point that we're talking about today. We're going to add all the data through here. And then later we'll talk about, I think my plan is to do that roughly around Friday. We'll start to talk about how to add and remove data from Java. Okay? So the next question is to kind of start talking about what we want to do for the final project. Okay? I think I'm going to run this similar to how we did the discussion yesterday, where I'm going to give everybody a chance to suggest some ideas, and then we'll kind of vote on what idea we want to move forward with that. I have a few ideas to post up, so I will be adding those on here. Some ideas that I have as far as things we could do as a final project include the bug tracker. This is definitely would be another thing that would fit that project. So bug tracker is one option that we can pursue and go forward with. Another option we could do is some sort of e-commerce app. If we proceeded with that, then I would assume that we were going to use the eBay API with this. Obviously, if we do the bug tracker, I don't really see a way that eBay API would connect, so we might look at other APIs that are out there or other options. Another option that we could do is basically a Discord clone. Should be an online chat room. Which is just one turn in social media. It turns out one of those things that Firebase is really, really good at is doing that sort of online chat functionality because of the real-time features that are there. So for social media applications, it's really, really good. So let me give everybody a post-it note. Write an idea you have down and contribute that to the front. And we'll start building them. Feel free to come on up and stick it on the board when you have their idea written down.
Sister showed me a pretty cool app last night. No, the next one. So I thought it suggested thought it was pretty interesting.
Okay.
And I think it might have some relation to like how you want to inspire for.
Okay. So what? Use a pen if you would, that way you can write smaller. So is that tracking which things you own?
Yeah, just like what you own, like the development, stuff like that.
Okay. I put under there you can put like ownership and social stuff. The one I'm not going to knock off of here is music streaming app because that would not fit in with things. I'm going to knock that one off. Other than that, I'm okay with everything else that's up there. Has everybody had a chance to put their post-it note up? Okay. So what I want you to do is just like we did yesterday. I want to pick one of these projects to do as a class. I'm okay with everything that's left. And what I want you to do is put 2 votes on the one that you like the most, 1 vote on your second choice. 2 votes and then 1 vote. And just put it on the card itself. Huh?
Yeah, I had a something like this for
Oh,
some people.
interesting.
What's the website? Look what they have introduced.
Okay. So, votes are in. We've got 4 on here, 9 on here. Okay, so there's the answer. So winner is e-commerce and eBay API. So what we'll do is that will be our project for the rest of the semester. Simple as that.
Can we veto that?
What do you mean veto that? So do you have a
No.
specific?
I mean, you know what veto means. Stamp of disapproval.
Is there something you really wished had won instead?
It doesn't bother me.
Okay. So that means we continue with that same API, and you can reuse some of the code we've already started with that project. It's the upside. So that fits with Firebase. The thing here to kind of recognize and understand, oftentimes with most applications, and I should have mentioned this earlier, oftentimes what will happen is you always have some amount of data in your application that you own as the developer that you want to have ownership on. And so that would be data that we put into Firestore or Firebase. There's also oftentimes data that you may want to interface that is owned by other companies, right? So in this case, it might be eBay. So what the expectation would be then is that there's some sort of split there of here's the data we have and here's the data they have. Does that make sense? So we pull some information from there or do some searching in there, as well as having information for ourselves. Okay. So the next question is, if we're going down this route, what data do we store where? Right? Starting to think about our model. Right? What is the data that we need to store to meet our objective? Right? And I was intentionally kind of vague on this. I didn't really say what our objective is, which is something we obviously have to figure out. Okay? Because obviously we don't want to just build eBay, right? eBay already exists. What we have to do is build something that's an enhancement to or an add-on to that. Okay. So what are some ideas from that front that we could do?
Maybe like since eBay hustles everything, maybe like do like a website that's strictly for crafts around your area.
You said for what around your area?
Crafts like t-shirts.
Yeah, like you could filter it down and maybe organize it. I mean, that's one option. One thing I might even say is, we've got the second pick here, which was the game library. Maybe we can do both. Right? Maybe the answer is you say, hey, you have your library of games, and then we can connect into eBay and say, hey, is that game for sale and what price is it available for?
It's like a wish list merged with an e-commerce.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
cool.
Keep a way to keep your catalog of games, right? And then add eBay API to that to say, okay, I want this game. Yes, this is on my wish list. I want to be notified if there's a new thing on eBay.
Wait, we could do different different consoles too. It wouldn't just be PC. It could be any of them.
Yeah, you could.
Switch.
You could. I mean, anything that's available on the eBay marketplace.
Yeah.
So you could do things like that. You could say, hey, maybe here's my Steam well, maybe not Steam catalog. Maybe here's my Xbox catalog and my Switch catalog and my PlayStation catalog, etc. Right? So if we're blending those two ideas together, what upper level collections would make sense, right? If we're trying to build a game library with some connections into eBay API, what do we need as some upper level collections? Okay. Well, easy answer is one of them is obviously going to be users. It's very rare that you have if you have an app that doesn't have a table of users. I mean, the only case is usually, hey, I only have one user in the system. Other than that, you usually do have a users table. Okay. What else? Well, where do we store your library? Where do we store the games that you have? Does that need its own collection? Should we put that into the users collection? Should that be a sub collection? Right. So we have to have some sort of users, some sort of library, which is the games that I own. We're looking at, here's a wish list of games, wish list of games I want. Is there anything else we need to account for? Other upper level collections might be seen. And I might mention there's a few other ways to spin this. So if you say you want to do this about your movie collection, you can basically do it without changing much of anything, right? So if you decide you want to take a little bit of a different spin and put different products in there, you want to do crafting instead of video games, you probably can without changing too much. I would expect your app to have some focus in a particular market, right? So games or movies or what have you, but this would work in general. Okay. Does that capture everything? Okay. So, and somewhere here, we might even want a collection of consoles, right? Keep track of the consoles that are available or our system supports, right? Because it may be even that we support only 2 of the consoles, right? Maybe we don't support all the consoles yet, or maybe we have some drop downs where we need to list the consoles. So that would be one. But what you're really asking is there maybe a user, is there some flag on user that says, hey, they prefer this console? Well, you could do that. I'm just asking about collections, right? What collections do you need to start at the offer level? Because you can drill down from there and think about what properties or what fields those things have, right? You want to make sure you start at the top and capture what is the data we need to store. There's something very important missing from that list. Very, very important.
Can you give us a hint? Like the first letter?
Okay. What's the, yep.
Well, I was gonna say like the sellers or like the.
Okay. Game library. What's missing?
Calculus of games.
Yes. Okay. Is that
How does that differ from a library? Yeah,
so the games you own and the games that are available? Because you have to store the games that the users actually own and the games that exist that have been developed and released. Those are 2 separate ideas, right? Maybe this is better categorized as like the user library and the, I'm going to do camel case, user library and the user user wish list. Right? User has a library of games that they own and a wish list of games that they want.
So how does that games collection get utilized then?
Store all the games.
We want to store the games that are available, right? Well, why do we need that? Why do we need that to start with? Well, if the user is going to search for a game to either add to their library or the wish list, they have to have something to search in.
Oh, okay, okay.
Right?
That's like, okay.
Because otherwise, how do they add the game to their library wish list if it doesn't previously exist? Well, they would have to type in all of the details again, and then the next user that wants to add that game would have to type in all the details again, right? So if we provide a centralized list, it's much easier to add things.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Okay, so that's a pretty good starting point. Okay, where does the eBay stuff come in? Well, eBay stuff would come in somewhat related to games, right? We need to know some keywords, some information that we can use to look those up on Marketplace. So we probably need to know, like, in the game itself, we need to know what console it's available on, which probably means we're going to have more than one version. Like, so you might have a console version, you might have an Xbox version. Those might be actually different games. Depends on how you want to model it, right? You can either model it as separate games, or you could model it as a game with the consoles that it's available on. Either way is possible. Okay. Does that make sense from a upper level point? So what I want you to do, and this is where I'm going to send everybody to kind of do their own thing. I want you to have all those 5 collections at the top. Okay. What I want you to do is design your own database with that. Okay. Design your own database, populate it with some data. So that means I want you to have at least 2 user accounts. Pick at least 5 games. Add at least 2 consoles. Add at least 2 things to the wish list per user. 2 games per user, 2 games per user.
So would let's just look at endgame here. Would the restrictions on the search results for this kind of app, would they restrict you to only listings in a certain category? Like, say for example, a game that's not released yet, but it is officially announced. Obviously, you can't just go buy it on eBay. So you go type in its name, you might actually get T-shirts.
So, yeah. So that's a good question. So the games that should be here should probably be things that are already available on eBay.
Oh, already.
Right? Already available. Generally, what would happen with an app like this is that this collection would be maintained by the developers, right? So this, you can think of it that way, as this is maintained by you as a developer, not by the end users. The end users have access to add things to their wish list in their library, their profile, but they can't add new consoles or new games, right? That's the developer or the company's prerogative. Make sense?
Makes sense.
So, go for it. Yeah. Start in test mode. Start in test mode. So break a brand new project. You can call that project this is the game library project. The database would be game library as well. Oh, I actually don't think that the database does not have a name. Yeah, the database does not have a name. Yes.
So we're talking about final project still, right?
Yes.
So this is going to be the final project, Firebase project that we want to integrate it, or is this just one you're wanting us to do today?
So this is what we're going to roll into the final project.
Okay, so me too, right? Okay.
So we're creating the database today. Tomorrow I'll show you how to read the data and start reading the data via Android. So pulling the data out there. But that's why we need to have some data set up so that we can retrieve that. We can start querying it. So you got 5 collections to create with different amounts of user stuff. I'm going to go ahead and write that.
So is there a name in the project name so that it's unique?
Oh, yes. If you can, absolutely do. You may, if you've already created it, you might need to rename it, but yes, it would help me. It would help me immensely if you would put your name in it. I believe if you go up to the top under, if you go up to the top under users and permissions, you should be able to add me. My email address on there, I believe, is that listed under? That's an owner. I believe that's my email. Or Firebase. Yes.
Would you like us to create a new account for Google Analytics or use the default account for Firebase?
It doesn't matter. I would create a new one. Go ahead and create a new one.
Okay.
Create a new one specifically for the Game Library project. A new analytics account. It's fine. If you didn't select it, you can change it. The important thing is really just to get the data.
Is that at Ranken?
Yeah, Ranken-IT.com. I believe is my user. Yes, that's what it is.
I gotta say this Firebase thing is really seamless. I remember it took a long time to initialize the whole Mongo thing.
Yeah, it does. It's pretty quick in terms of that. It is a bit of a different architecture. So like you're kind of getting 3 dedicated VM with the MongoDB Atlas things versus notice that this, like, so far we even haven't talked about servers and databases and hard drives, right? Like it takes care of setting up the hard drives and the virtual machines and all those things for you. That's behind the scenes. So if your database gets big, it just adds more servers and magically there's more servers behind it running it.